Hi there. This little tutorial, is just aimed at those of you who have started learning piano but have gone quite far with it, but you're still considered a beginner. In other words, you haven't started preparing for exams yet. So all I want to do today is introduce you to what I'm going to be doing. This is just going to be a little short tutorial to give you some practice tips on how to practice whilst we're all stuck at home. Now, it's very important that you try and be consistent with your practice. Don't practice one day and then forget about it for 5-6 days. It is better to practice a little every day than to skip all too many days. Alternatively, every second day, as long as there is some routine and some habit in your practicing. It is also a very good idea to try and practice about much the same time every day. And let me tell you, although now you're sitting at home with time to spare, you'll have time. But when we get back to being with all our activities, finding time to practice becomes difficult. And unless you make time for it, the time will escape you. So you have to decide this is important. The other thing about piano playing is you will not make progress unless you are working on a consistent basis. It just won't happen. So when you practice, as I say, you set a time aside, try and keep it much the same time. Don't have distractions, no TV going, no doing other things, no people talking to you. Nice and quiet so that you can concentrate. It is far more worthwhile to have a concentrated practice for 10 minutes than to practice for an hour and not have your mind with you. So very important to practice and think. So the first part of practice is always your warm-ups that we do. Now for all of you, we do that. And I've done a little tutorial on the warm-ups and the exercises, so I'm not going to repeat that. Suffice to say that should be done before every practice. And yes, you probably say, oh, but I know it. It's not about knowing it. It's about doing it automatically and about building strength, stamina, and about getting flexibility of your joints. The next thing I would like you to try and do once you've done all your exercises, those of you who are doing scales, you do your scales as well, and I've also done a little tutorial on that. The next thing that you're going to do is to go to the work we are doing. Now, you're not in lessons. Sometimes most of you only have a half an hour in the beginning. I cannot cover everything that we are doing. You must realize and understand which books you're working from. Most of you will work from the Piano Safari book 1 or 2, Piano Land book 1 or 2, and some of you have Ellie's little solo book. So work out what your work is, and some of you are also using other books like the John Thompson. The important thing is to know, firstly, to stay current with what you're working on presently, but it's also good to go back and just revise, especially in the beginning. The important thing is to learn how to count. Now remember, the semi-breve gets 4 counts, 1, 2, 3, 4. The minim gets 1, 2. Crotchet is 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the dotted minim is 1, 2, 3. Now, it's a good thing to count out loud when you practice. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. The most important thing is not always having the right notes. It's having the right notes and counting correctly as well. Music without rhythm, I'll play that same thing now and do it without rhythm. Makes no sense at all, see? So important that you count while you practice, and make sure you've understood when you look at the pieces that you're working with what the counting is, how long you hold each note for, and that sort of thing. The other thing to make sure of is piano playing very difficult because this hand can do something very different from the other hand. So we got to learn how to get these hands independent. So don't just assume when you're doing your little pieces that you are playing the correct notes. Check it and see. especially something like that Ellie study for both hands, because you're starting with 4 fingers in both hands, some of you start on the wrong note with the left hand. So make sure you've worked out, you know how to work out your notes now from C to G in the right hand and C to F in the left hand. So work out what your notes are to start. If you're not sure, sit and work it out. Remember, another name for the treble clef is the G clef, because G is on the second line, and then you can work out the other notes. Another name for bass clef is the F clef, and it's on the 4th line of the bass clef staff. If you know where that is, you can work out your other notes. So go back, go over everything you've done, and play them carefully and slowly, and do it a few times so it becomes easy. Then the current work we're doing, make sure you go over that a few times so when I do listen to you in your lessons, it's prepared and you're able to play it for me. The Red Book, Piano Land Book, very important book for sight reading and teaching you to know your notes. And even though we do those little exercises to say and play once in a class and we forget about them, you can revise and do them yourself and learn them. So as you can, when you start seeing certain notes, you don't even have to work it out anymore. It becomes automatic. That is the aim. And then, of course, there's some of you are doing the little Ellie's, which has got that down by the river. And that you can also play and make sure you're doing that correctly. There's, of course, nothing stopping you from going a little further and investigating a few of the other pieces. All right, I think that's enough for today, and we will do some more of it next time.